Stalin, the Soviet leader, began spending practically all of his leisure time in his second residence in the Konchevo neighborhood of Moscow as he drew closer to death. He frequently invited 4 people from his inner circle to join him there for a movie and supper because he became depressed easily when left alone. These 4 individuals were Nikolai Bulganin, Lavrentiy Beria, Nikita Khrushchev, and Georgy Malenkov. He would call the 4 as soon as he got up and either ask them to see a movie with him or launch into a lengthy talk about a problem that could have been fixed in 2 minutes. The relocation was made in part for company and in part so that they could be watched. Stalin was 73 in 1953. He either had a heart attack or had a series of strokes in 1945, and ever since then, his health had declined. His level of paranoia had also never been higher. Stalin did not react well to his doctor's advice to rest more and work less when he visited for his routine checkup in 1951. The doctor was taken into custody and accused of spying for British intelligence. Stalin's health was indeed deteriorating, whether he wanted to acknowledge it or not. Stalin reorganized the Kremlin hierarchy rather than laying out a clear course for the future, putting a lot of young, relatively unknown people in key positions in a way that was intended to obscure and confound the succession lines rather than to make them apparent. He particularly wanted to remind those in his closest circle that they were all disposable. "You are blind like kittens," he would repeatedly warn them. "The imperialists will murder you if I'm not there." However, observers in the Soviet Union became aware of something more going on with Stalin in the closing months of his life. As rumors swarmed about who held court in his chain of command, in the winter of 1953, Stalin turned his attention toward the Soviet Jews in a campaign that foreshadowed a new wave of purges and party upheaval reminiscent to the Great Terror of the 1930s that had the potential to shake the foundations of the Soviet Union and its leadership. Given the circumstances, it's possible that his comrades in arms decided to risk poisoning Stalin on the evening of February 28, 1953. Stalin called Malenkov, Beria, Khrushchev, and Bulganin as usual late that night to see a movie. They ended the night at 5 or 6 in the morning, according to Khrushchev's recollection of the events. He wrote, "I recall that as usual, Stalin appeared to bid us farewell when we were at the entrance hall. He was joking about a lot and was in a good mood. He called me Mikola as he poked me in the stomach with his index finger or fist. When he was happy, he always referred to me by my name in Ukrainian. Since nothing had occurred throughout the supper, we left in good spirits as well. Not every one of those dinners had a pleasant ending." Khrushchev claims that on the next day, a Sunday, he stayed at home in anticipation of a call from Stalin extending an invitation for that evening. Stalin, or anyone else, did not call him, though. He didn't ring for food, and the sensors in Stalin's apartments hadn't picked up any movement either. Workers at Stalin's second home allegedly stated in later interviews that they were too afraid to disturb Stalin. It wasn't until after 10:30 that Stalin was checked on. One account claims that one of the guards, Peter Lozgachev, ultimately made it inside Stalin's rooms, ostensibly to deliver official correspondence from the Kremlin. According to some reports, it was the season maid. The dictator was lying on the floor in his pajamas when whoever entered the room discovered him, and the urine-stained floor. It appeared as though Stalin had gotten out of bed to get water but then suffered a stroke because there was an empty glass and mineral water on the table. Stalin's second home staff members carried him onto the sofa in the dining room and covered him with a rug. The decision to contact a doctor was unanimously supported by all in attendance, but the officials on duty preferred to await guidance from the party hierarchy. They eventually managed to reach Beria, who insisted they keep the news of Stalin's illness to themselves. Whether on purpose or not, the members didn't decide to call the Minister of Health to choose doctors for a preliminary examination until approximately 7 in the morning. Stalin was unconscious, his right arm and leg were immobilized, and his blood pressure was an alarmingly high 190/110 when the physicians finally arrived. Stalin's brutal 30-year hegemony over the Soviet Union came to an end that evening. His passing was noted at 9:50. The Soviet premier commanded not just the party leadership during his 3 decades in office, but also the hearts and minds of the Russian people. Despite his reign of terror, which resulted in the deaths of tens of millions of people, he maintained the title of Uncle Joe, the father of all Russians, right up until the end. With his network of spies and connections, Beria appeared prepared to take over after Stalin's demise. However, he severely miscalculated his adversaries. The battle over who would fill the power void left by Stalin's departure had only begun, as the outsider Khrushchev would soon demonstrate. If you want to hear more stories like that, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Write in the comments, What topic I should treat next?